August 16th of 2012. Luke and I went out for a familiar 4-mile run. We started out later in the morning. We got to about mile 3, and I remember saying to Luke that how fortunate that I was to be out running, and then that's the last memory that I have.
I look back and she had collapsed, and so I ran back to her and found her unresponsive and didn't really know what was going on at first. So I ran to the road and flagged a car down, asking them to call 911 because we didn't have our cell phones. So I got their attention, ran back to Kristi, and a second driver had stopped who had CPR skills. Had noticed a different runner running by, and asked them to go get the AED at the Sports and Fitness Edge. We were fortunate enough for this to happen right near a busy intersection and by a facility that had an AED. And then I turned to Kristi to help and begin with rescue breaths to try to keep her alive while first responders were on their way.
At that time, I did not have a pulse. And then when the first responders arrived, I was shocked a total of 3 times. Though the response time was incredibly fast, I was without a pulse, in fact dead for at least 10 minutes. Once I arrived at the hospital, straight to the ER, I was then packed with ice in hopes of decreasing any further damage that may have occurred. I was still on a ventilator, in a coma, unresponsive.
Around 3:15 in the morning, we noticed Kristi began opening her eyes. And once I noticed that, I asked her to squeeze my hand if she could hear me, and she squeezed my hand. And at that point, I ran out of the room to get the doctors to let them know that she was back.
After being awake for a little bit and coming to, that's when the conversation started happening around the fact that I was going to need an ICD. It was probably the biggest emotional barrier for me to move through of this whole process is coming to the realization that this was something, that this had happened and that this was forever. When I think about the event, and I think about it all the time, whether it's driving by the site that it happened to and from work every day, seeing a runner, having one of my students ask what the lump in my chest is, or seeing it myself in the mirror. Again, I know I'm incredibly blessed. Most people who experience out-of-hospital cardiac arrest don't have the same outcome that I did. And though the changes that I had to make initially felt huge to me, the not being able to run anymore, and it's something that I loved to do, finding out that pregnancy isn't an option, those are 2 very big life adjustments. And I'm just incredibly grateful to be able to live my life as it is, and with Luke and with my family and friends' support. Looking back on it, dying was the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me for so many reasons.